Welcome, welcome, welcome to another session of Notes from the Route. My name is Jared Forte, and thanks for taking the time to check out this program. What we do here is, or what I do here is, I share my thoughts and ideas and notes regarding some of the things that I've been thinking about and working on in my writing. I do it in public to try to open up a conversation so that I can kind of hone my ideas, and also hopefully it'll be something that's useful to you as you go about your work. The ideas maybe will be able to help you as well. So we want to try to create a win-win situation with the work that we're doing here. So this is session 3, and the topic of this session is epic versus episodic content. Epic versus episodic. So it's a discussion of content strategy, looking at it from two different perspectives. All right. So let's get into my notes here. So two approaches. One approach is the epic approach. And the best way I can think of to describe epic content is to put it into the context of movies. So the two largest grossing movies in the history of Hollywood were by the same director, James Cameron, and they were Avatar and Titanic. They were both huge movies, huge in scale and scope, very expensive productions. So they were huge. They cost a lot of money to make, and they made a lot of money. Okay, you can also think about in the world of books. You look at the Harry Potter books. They are episodic, but they were also epic in scale in each story. So I love epic. I love epic content. One really great example that's personally relevant to me that I really enjoy as an example. I'm a big fan of hip hop, and one of my favorite albums all time in hip hop is Midnight Marauders by A Tribe Called Quest. Came out in 1993, and just to clear the samples on that album was like $1 million. They put $1 million just into the sample clearance to put this content out. So epic costs a lot, whether it's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of both. So I'm grateful that people have the commitment and have the skill and are able to pull the resources together to pull off a piece of epic work that can stand the test of time and that we can all look back on and enjoy. That is valuable work to do. What I want to present here are some of the aspects of producing epic content that you want to think about as you decide how you want to incorporate that aspect of content strategy into the work that you do, whether you're producing content online through blogs or podcasts or videos, or however you're publishing your content or getting your ideas into the world. These are some of the characteristics of the epic approach that you should take into consideration so you can decide how to best handle these situations. So one thing about epic content is that it requires promotion up front. Now, if you go to a movie, it's 90 plus degrees, my AC isn't working that well, and I don't want to sweat through things, so I'm trying to keep myself situated here. Okay, it requires promotion up front. Epic content requires promotion up front. If you ever go to a movie, you sit and you get ready to watch the movie, you got about 20 minutes of trailers coming up to let you know movies that are coming maybe next year. They want to start talking about them, start getting the word out. They have to put all of that promotional energy up front because epic content is event-based. Everything builds for this big day, this big happening where everything drops and they build all of their energy towards that first weekend or that first week of sales. That's what the whole push is aimed towards. And if you are launching an epic product or a big product, then you also need to think about how you're going to promote it in advance. Another aspect of epic content is a lot of times is produced in a vacuum. Um, I know I've had the experience of working in studios, and I've been on different types of production sets. And honestly, the studio and the set, it can be sort of a fantasy land. You can get so involved in the production and the details of what's going on that you don't really have a clear picture. It's easy to lose vision about what you're making and how it's going to affect the audience in the end. You're just wrapped up in the process, and everybody around you is also wrapped up in the process. So everybody's either they're stressed out by it, or they're cheerleading and hyping each other up. Especially in a studio situation, everybody is like fans of what's going on because they're invested in it. Speaking of investment, this is another aspect of epic content. A lot of times with the epic content, there is a big investment of money. If not, there's a huge investment of time, and that's great. It's important to have the commitment to doing things this way, and to be able to marshal those resources. But one of the dangers is that when you have this huge commitment of time and money in advance, sometimes it leads to some kind of psychological errors or biases, confirmation bias, meaning because you've invested in it, now you're in, now you own it, and now your opinion of it is biased. The whole reason that there's an industry of consultants that work for companies, Fortune 500 companies that are full of smart people, some of the smartest people in the world are there inside the company. But they understand that in order to get a clear perspective, they have to sometimes go outside, someone who isn't directly tied to it, because they can have a clearer picture of what's going on, an unbiased look. But when you're working on an epic scale project and you've invested time and money and resources, then it's hard to get that outside perspective and get a clear picture of things. Another thing that happens is you can fall victim to what's called the sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost, that's sort of like throwing good money after bad. Here's a good example of what I mean by that. You go out to eat and you buy, you get an expensive entree and it's really good. It's delicious, it's expensive, you didn't eat all of it, but you got your money tied up in it. So you eat more than you should. It happens in relationships. People get into relationships and they spend a lot of time, they put years into a relationship and it's not working, but they put so much time in. It's like, if I don't make it work, then all that's wasted. But that's really the wrong way to look at things. Sunk cost is it's hard. It takes a lot of discipline to cut your losses when things aren't working. But that's what you have. That's the right decision sometimes. And your personal investment in this epic project, sometimes it'll make it difficult to make that tough decision. Another characteristic of the epic content is that it typically has long production cycles. It takes a long time to put a movie together. Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies, and from the time the screenplay was written and first brought before the studios, it was 20 years before the movie actually got made and saw the theaters. Now that's an extra long time, but typically it can take 3, 5, 7 years from concept to actually getting made. And that's a long time to stay committed to a project, and it requires a lot of resources and support to see that type of thing through. Now, because of all of this investment that's required upfront and throughout the process before the product is even available, the business is very businesses that are built on strictly epic content, they are hit dependent. Major music studios, major record labels, publishing houses, they count on the few hits to cover the losses of all the other projects that they put out. They thrive on those hits. The world of startups is this way with venture capital backed startups. For every successful investment, you got 9 dogs, and you're hoping that your one hit is big enough to cover your losses and save the fund. So the aspect is that with that long production cycle, you end up being dependent on the big hit, the big win. You either win big or you lose. It's a very binary type of situation. And because of the stakes, because of that investment of time, because of that investment of money and capital, a lot of times people tend to resort to being formulaic. They stick with the tried and true. They aren't as willing to take risks. They do what works because the cost of losing or of missing out on all of this investment, they don't want to take that risk. So they stick to the formula and they, don't experiment because it's too much on the line. That tends to happen sometimes. When you were looking for a massive hit, then it tends to be pretty mainstream. The fringe things that make it big just kind of happen by accident. So that's another aspect of the game. Now, you have to earn the right to make epic content. I won't say you pay your dues because there is no dues to be paid. There's no way you can buy the right to make epic content. But you do have to earn the right, meaning you have to earn the trust of people who are going to support you through this long process. You have to earn through your efforts and experience the skills required to see something like that through. You have to earn the authority with an audience to produce something that's big and of scale and that's extremely valuable that they're waiting for. Those aren't things that you just walk out the door with. It takes time and an investment in yourself to earn the right to produce that. And then not only do you have to earn the right to do it, then you have to be willing to sell it. You have to sell the vision, and you have to sell yourself as the person who can see it through. So those are aspects of epic content. Now we're going to take a second and I'm going to go to the other side and talk about episodic content, which is the other side of the story here. I know y'all going to love this. Okay, here we go. Next note. Now, a great way to think about the episodic content is to think about Netflix and the way that has changed the way that so many people experience content. Netflix and on demand, even if you don't have Netflix, if you just use on-demand services from your cable company, the ability to time shift and to binge watch a large body of work at one time, it really creates a new experience of the stories that you can tell. You have a different or a more nuanced, you can get a more nuanced feel for the characters that are in a story, and you can develop a deeper relationship as they go over the subtleties of what's going on in the story. And that's one of the powers of episodic content. You can build that depth of connection. Now, you can employ that same type of strategy into the content that you create yourself. You don't have to be making a movie for this to apply to you. It can apply to the way that you connect with the audience that you write for on your blog. It can connect to the people who watch your videos or listen to your podcast or follow you on a channel of social media. However it is that you're telling the story about yourself or your brand, you can develop that relationship over time in the same way that people over the course of time fell in love with or became enamored with the characters on Breaking Bad or the characters on The Sopranos. It didn't happen in one big event. It happened over the course of time. And you have that opportunity to build that type of relationship with the content that you create as well. So let's talk about some of the aspects of episodic content. Now, in contrast to epic content where all of the promotion has to happen up front, with episodic content, the content itself is a part of the promotion. Every piece of content that you produce, everything that you release into the world, becomes something that can be that can feed your that can feed the next piece of content. It can build in that way. So you have to give it an initial push. Yeah, you have to let people know that you're out there. But once that starts, you have the opportunity to hook your audience in with every new piece of content that you create. In the same way that a story uses a cliffhanger at the end to bring you back next week, you can use those same types of things to engage your audience and keep them coming back for more of what you have to offer. So for episodic content, the content itself is a part of the promotion. Now, we talked about the investment required to produce epic content, whether it be time or money or some combination of both. There is an investment for episodic content as well, but you do it in increments. You don't spend your whole budget at the beginning to produce the whole thing that you want to do. You don't create an entire body of work in one go. Your investment is in increments. In television, they do pilot and pivot. You produce an episode, you get some feedback, see how it does. If it does well, then you order some more. And then that's how a show keeps getting renewed. They have a good season, good feedback, okay, we'll bring you back for some more. If it's a movie, you got to make the whole movie before you know what the audience thinks of it. And as opposed to, let's say, if you're going to write a book, you have to write the whole book, put the book out there, and then find out what people think. If you're really in phases, in sessions, and episodes, then you can get the feedback as you go. You can hone your message to your audience as you go. So it makes it a very powerful strategy. And your investment of time and resources, rather than having it all up front, it can be spread across the entire time that you're producing content. Okay? So another good example is that you can be a lot quicker to market with an episode than you can with an entire body of work. You put out a piece of content. You put out a sample of what you're going to do, and you get feedback on it, and then you can make adjustments, and you can do another small thing. It's sort of akin to what they call in the startup community. It's a concept of the lean startup, where they just kind of throw something out there, get some feedback, clean it up based on the feedback, make it better, rather than spending all this time in a vacuum hiding out in your lab tinkering and making something nobody knows about. You put something out there and build it with the feedback of your audience. You can do the same thing with content of any type as well. Okay, another difference between epic and episodic. With episodic content, you can have a small win and it be worthwhile. You don't have to win big. You don't have to have a big hit. You can get some feedback on your work. You can make a few sales. You can have these little wins that you can build upon, and that helps you propel the process forward. And another thing you can do is you can fail fast. You don't have to spend 6 years putting a movie together that no one is going to see. You can learn pretty quickly whether or not you have something that's worth building on. Not overnight, but it won't take 6 years either. Okay. And those small gains, those small wins, those incremental wins, they build momentum, and then you got an exponential win. Then it kind of explodes over the course of time. So you can build upon those small wins and eventually have something that's huge. And so I know episodic sounds great. There are some problems. There are some concerns with it. One is what I call the leadership dilemma. Do you just do what people want because you have access to all this feedback? You have this audience. Over time, you'll build this audience. You're serving these people who are, coming to consume your content or whatever it is. They're watching your art. They're experiencing your art, your music. They're reading your stuff. So do you let them decide what's next, or do you and optimize for that type of thing, or do you take leadership and create something that's new? Do you lead your audience? Sometimes we have access to so much data that we can get real strategic. about our content. And I know we're talking about content strategy, but you also have to think from the point of view of what is going to fulfill you as a creative person, as an artist. Is it going to make you happy if you just try to scientifically figure out what people want and give it to them and take their money? Are you going to have the courage to be a leader and lead them to something that they need, or lead them into a new experience and be willing to take a risk? So that's the question that you have to ask yourself when you're breaking your content down that way. So to conclude, I love the output of both forms of content. I love a great big story, huge special effects. I love that, and I'm glad that there are people who have the resources and the tenacity and the fortitude to see those huge projects through. But as a producer, I haven't earned the right to do that yet. I don't have that yet. When I say right, what I mean is I don't have the trust of an audience. I don't have the skill. I don't have the resources at my disposal just yet. And I don't have a full understanding of producing things on that scale. But maybe soon I will. So that's been thanks for checking out this session of Notes from the Route. You can learn more about the show. You can follow me on Twitter at thisjared. That's at thisjared. My website is jaredforte.com. And of course, check me out on G+, Jared Forte, YouTube. I'm all over the place. I look forward to your feedback, and we'll see you tomorrow.